Greetings and welcome to Introduction to Political Science. This first week, we're going to go over the syllabus and we're going to jump right into Chapter 1, which is going to cover key concepts. Okay, if you haven't done so, please carefully review the syllabus for this class. It includes a course description and outcomes and a course schedule, expectations. It will go over course policies and provide institutional support, information on institutional support services. So it's important that you look over that. This is my contract with you. I very much want you to fully understand what you're getting involved in here. Once you've done so, take the Getting Started quiz. This will only cover the syllabus. It's extra credit. It will provide you an opportunity to share some information with me and for me to get to know you a little bit better. It'll also help you get familiar with the quiz function on D2L. To take that, click on Assessments and Quizzes. Once you've done that, make sure to introduce yourself in the rumpus room. This is under Communication and Discussions. This is our open discussion area. And just take a minute and introduce yourself to the class. Please also check out the welcome message that will be posted or that is posted on the main D2L page, but also under materials and content. This first PowerPoint mini lecture is going to go over course requirements in the syllabus, and then we're going to jump right into Chapter 1 and key concepts. Please make sure that, like I said, you've read the syllabus, but also make sure that you've read the first chapter of the reading. Read as assigned before each weekly mini lecture. So my assumption will be that you've already done the reading and we're taking it from there. Okay, let's jump right in. Okay, here's our text for the class, Comparative Government Politics, the 11th edition. Please make sure to get the 11th edition because there was a pretty major reconfiguration of this textbook. By the way, I selected this textbook. It's written from a European perspective, so I think that's helpful when it comes to studying comparative government. Governments all over the world. And also I selected it because I think it's a pretty good value. It's a lot less expensive than other introduction to political science textbooks that are out there. And at the same time, it's comprehensive. All right, here's how the class is going to be organized. As I said before, first thing at the beginning of each week, read as assigned, okay? And the reading schedule is posted in the syllabus. And I will also have a checklist each week of your responsibilities, the tasks that you need to complete, and that will include the weekly reading. Step 2, after you've done the reading, view the mini lectures. These are going to be between 20 and 30 minutes, hopefully closer to 20 minutes. This first one's going to be a little bit longer because we're going through course expectations in addition to the first chapter of the reading. These mini lectures are going to be available Monday of each week, and I will also post a lecture outline as a PDF as well. Both of these are going to be available on the main class page, but also under materials and content. Once you've done this, you're ready to jump into weekly discussion. You do this by clicking on Communication and Discussion and that week's discussion area. Discussion areas are only going to be open for the week considered, so you won't be able to go back and participate in previous week's discussion. So make sure during the week that you participate. How do you do that? Well, it'll involve one substantive original post that directly responds to one of the guiding questions for the week. This will be between 100 and 150 words. Make sure to draw on class readings, class materials in making your point. You're also asked to respond to comment on 2 posts of fellow classmates and make sure that these posts are on topic and that they also sharply address one of the guiding questions for the week. If you do all of that, you'll have a perfect participation score for the week. To make sure that you are completing discussions correctly, carefully read the grading rubric that is posted under materials and content. And again, if you do that over the course of the semester, this will help you get a very good grade when it comes to your participation score. Okay, so how's grading going to work? Well, first of all, 20% of the grade, 200 points, is participating in weekly class discussion. This is determined by analyzing student involvement in the weekly discussion area and students' responses to the weekly guiding questions. And those will be included in the weekly presentation, but also be posted under the week's discussion area. The expectation is that you'll have one original post to a guiding question and at least 2 responses to your classmates' on-topic posts. Make sure to read the post of your classmates as well. I'll also be assessing this. Again, we have a grading rubric, a detailed grading rubric that's posted under materials and content. Read that carefully before jumping in so that you understand what the expectations are. We'll have 3 analysis papers for the class. These are worth 100 points each, a total of 300 points possible. Each of these papers will be 2 to 3 pages, 500 to 750 words, and you will analyze either an assigned film for the class or a news item of your choice that closely relates to assigned reading. A detailed grading rubric for this is also posted under materials and content. The deadlines are indicated in the course schedule. They're also indicated in the Dropbox area, and they'll also be indicated in the class calendar. Late papers will be accepted, but they will be deducted a full letter grade. The last possible date to submit a late paper is posted in the syllabus. Submit all papers using D2L. Don't email them to me. Go under assessment and the assignments Dropbox area to submit your work. Quizzes. Yes, there will be quizzes. We will have weekly quizzes over the course of the term. Each one of these we'll have 14 of them, so any one of them should not be considered make or break. It's just a way to make sure that you are following along in the reading and that you are building an understanding of concepts related to the weekly learning outcomes. To prepare for these, carefully consider the weekly learning outcomes and the key concepts that are identified in the text. Of course, read each week's materials carefully, then review the mini lecture like the one you're listening to right this very second. I will also post PowerPoint lecture outlines for you to take notes with. These quizzes are going to be available Friday through Sunday each week. Again, around 10 questions. It will not be possible to take missed quizzes. So if you miss a quiz, that's it. However, I will be dropping the 2 lowest scores over the term. So if you miss one, that obviously would be the one that gets dropped. To get familiar with the quiz function, after you've read the syllabus, jump in, take the Getting Started quiz. It requires no poli-sci background, just that you've read the quiz. Helps me to get to know you just a little bit better, and it helps you to get to know the quiz function in D2L. Again, we will have weekly quizzes. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns, and as we go, I will do my best to help you and help provide materials so that you're prepared for these quizzes. And there will be a final exam. The final exam is going to be worth 20% of the overall grade. It will cover many of the questions and concepts from your weekly quizzes. Those weekly quizzes, as you know, deal directly with weekly learning outcomes. So there'll be more preparation for this as we get closer. There'll be roughly 70 questions. You'll have 70 minutes to complete the exam. And as we get closer, I'll provide tips on how you can best prepare to take the final exam. You may also complete, if you wish, an optional extra credit civic engagement project that's worth up to 100 additional points. To do so, you would need to attend a pre-approved interactive political activity or training. So that's something that would need to be pre-approved by me before you actually do it, or participate in a campus club that's closely related to politics. For example, you could get training and serve as a Minnesota election judge, or you could become an Inver Hills student senator and get involved with student government here on campus. So those would be 2 examples. Again, make sure to reach out to me ahead of time so I can pre-approve whatever it is that you're looking at. Simply attending a meeting or going to a political event, that's not enough to satisfy this extra credit project. You could also get involved with an off-campus political organization. That could be a political party or a specific political campaign or an interest group that you care about. Those are all things that you can do as long as they involve some training and an opportunity to carry out the training that you're getting. Again, any project needs to be pre-approved, needs to be approved by me in advance, Once you've completed this extra credit project, you will also write a 2 to 3 page paper detailing your experience and relating it to concepts considered in the course. The deadlines for this are in the syllabus course schedule. So if you're interested in this, start thinking about it right now. Reach out to me. I'm happy to brainstorm and discuss some possible options for you. Let's take a look at the learning outcomes for this entire course. You'll need to be able to demonstrate the following to successfully complete Introduction to Political Science, and that includes the following. The ability to assess political institutions using the comparative method, assess political processes and phenomena using the comparative method, assess political cultures using the comparative method, compare and contrast perspectives on comparative politics, reflect on or participate in the roles and responsibilities of national citizens in a global context, and reflect critically on one's own national values, opinions, and experiences in contrast to those of people elsewhere. All right, I know I sound like a broken record, but please make sure that you've reviewed the syllabus carefully, that you've reviewed the course schedule, and that you've reviewed the course policies. This is very important for success in the class. And here are our learning outcomes for week 1. We'll define politics, power, government, and governance. We'll identify what distinguishes full democracy, flawed democracy, hybrid, and authoritarian rule. We'll discuss authority and legitimacy. We'll identify how ideology helps us view government and the goals of public policy. Much of this early reading is dedicated to key concepts so that we kind of understand the foundations of political science. Political science is applying the scientific method to the study of politics. It's a form of social science. So we're studying theory and practice of governments and politics. We're focusing on the structure and dynamics of institutions, political processes, and political behavior. Government is the institutions and structures through which societies are governed. The various institutions that are within government, we sometimes think of them as bureaucracies, but they have a formal organization with clear practices and with the ultimate goal of producing a political purpose or effect. They're also marked by durability, they persist over time, and complexity, which is why we need to study them. Political systems are the various structures that societies use to reach and enforce political decisions, collective decisions. Governance, as opposed to government, governance is the process by which decisions and laws and policies are made. Government is the institutions, governance is the process. Why do we need government? Is government a necessity? Well, Thomas Hobbes argued that the fundamental reason why we need government is to provide for basic security and order. And what might come to mind for that is policing, or a military to protect from external attack, to protect from attack from other countries or other states in the international system. Hobbes argued that we set up government to escape a life that would be, quote, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. The term politics gets thrown around a lot, and I think to the point where it kind of loses meaning. So for the sake of the methodical study of political science, politics is the process by which people negotiate and compete in order to make and execute shared or collective decisions. Power is the capacity to bring about intended effects. So we often use this term too as a synonym for influence, but it really can also be used more narrowly to talk about how an individual or an organization or a country gets one's way. How do they produce the intended effects? So in your text, take a look at table 1.1 and try to make some sense of Luke's 3 dimensions of power. And please make sure to reach out to me if you have any questions on that. Let's talk just a little bit more about power. We often think of the American president as being a symbol of power, and we often use the term the leader of the free world. We can think about power through the context of the American presidency for just a minute. Power can be viewed in several ways. The ability to shape one's own destiny, or the ability to get your way against opposition, or the ability to control the agenda, shape the agenda, what people are talking about, and control the flow of information. And I think we could probably all agree that an American president has some ability to do all of those things, although, of course, to many different degrees. The great power of the media globally and within the United States is the ability to set the agenda, to determine the things that we talk about, the issues of importance or less importance. So when you think about power, try to think about it through these different dimensions, and how are individuals, how are organizations, how are institutions, or the media, where do they draw their power? Yet another way to think about politics is who wins and who loses. Resources are not unlimited, and there are always people who end up doing better than others when it comes to political decisions. And some political decisions may even benefit everybody, but all will not benefit equally. For example, tax cuts are in many cases are going to benefit um, wealthy people much more than they might benefit people who make less money or no money. Harold Laswell, sort of a founding father of political science, defined politics quite simply as who gets what, when, and how. So think just a minute on the following areas: educational funding, Social Security, public health care. Who benefits? Who pays? So this is yet another way to think about politics. A few concepts here that are important as related to power and politics are authority and legitimacy. So authority is about who has the right to rule. Which person or organization has the right to make decisions, who is seen as in charge. And this is closely related to the concept of legitimacy. Um, a legitimate system of government is one based on authority, where people internal to the country, the citizens of that country, and external to the country, citizens of other states in the international system, view the authority as legitimate. And the people who are subject to the rule of the leaders view the authority figure as legitimate and has the right to make decisions. So what are the ways that individuals, that governments gain authority? Well, there's the traditional way, hereditary rule, where your father was the king and you're the prince, and one day you'll be the king. And so this is based on custom, the established ways of doing things, and authority is passed down through generations. There is charismatic authority, where there's an intense commitment to an individual leader or the message. And so we see this in revolutionary leaders around the world, where the commitment is to the individual leader and to that leader's message. And then we also have legal rational authority, and this is what modern democracies are supposed to, that full democracies are supposed to be based on. They're based on rules and procedures. The office has the authority, but not the person. So in the United States, our presidency is designed to have the power, but the minute an American president is no longer an American president, they are the ex-president, and there's a peaceful transition of power, that person then assumes the power that is associated with the American presidency, or at least that's the design. And so in our democratic systems in the United States and other democracy, authority is vested in our Constitution, the rules of liberal democracy, which we'll get into, and our institutions, our bureaucracy. An important concept that we'll explore in this class is ideology. And this is a system of beliefs, a shared view of the world, a blueprint for how politics, economics, and society should be structured. And many of us develop an ideology, a way of looking at the world. And so throughout the course of this class, we're gonna reflect on our own ideologies and how we develop those ideologies, because none of us were born little conservatives. We weren't born little liberals. We were socialized into this set of beliefs. So spend some time in the reading understanding the main ideologies that are outlined. Much of the American discussion, much of the American political outlook is between liberalism and conservatism in the United States. Now, certainly there are some exceptions to that, but that's where much of the political debate happens within the United States. But we'll explore ideologies more broadly than that, and it'll be a good opportunity for us to reflect on our own political values and views and how we got them. This introduction to political science class that you're taking is at its heart a comparative politics class, which means it'll be international in nature. And we'll engage in a systematic study of governmental and political systems from around the world so that we can better understand them by drawing contrasts and identifying similarities between them. This will help us to broaden our understanding. The United States has only 4% of the world's population, so most of the political systems, most of the political processes that are occurring in the world take place outside of the United States. But we also end up learning more about our own government through seeing what's happening in other countries, in other states in the international system. The other benefit to studying comparative politics is that you're able to predict possible political outcomes, policy outcomes. So, for example, there's been much discussion about whether the United States should have more in terms of public health care, more universal coverage when it comes to health care. Well, we can look at other countries that provide that and see what the outcomes are. How do they do when it comes to the cost of providing that health care per person? Do they see improvements when it comes to health outcomes, like people living longer and having lower rates of disease and that kind of stuff? We can predict the outcome of healthcare policy by looking at countries that have accomplished similar policies. So these are all political science subfields. As I mentioned already, we're going to be focused on comparative politics, but some people also focus on international relations, national politics, the politics internal to a particular country, political philosophy, political theory. They focus on public policy. So these are all areas. And of course, there's a lot of overlap between them. Since the objective here is the study of comparative politics, we need to identify classifications for government so we can effectively compare them. Aristotle was the first to understand that this was necessary to compare different political systems. And he attempted to do so for the Greek city-states of his time, and classifying them as either monarchy or an aristocracy or a polity, which would be something more similar to democracy. And do take a look in the reading that sort of goes over this. But the important thing and the important lesson that comes from Aristotle's attempt is that he recognized that we can't effectively and methodically compare things unless we can begin the classification process. A more specific modern term for classification is typology, or political typologies. And this is a way that we classify which states, institutions, processes, political cultures are divided with certain sets of attributes. So, for example, we've in the past have used the three-world system, where the first world was advanced democracies like the United States, the second world was communist systems like the Soviet Union and China, and those that were closely allied with them, and the third world were those that were developing their institutions, developing their economies. They may or may not be allied with the first world or the second world. And we still use the term third world because of that. We don't really use the term second world much anymore, but we use the term third world as a synonym for the developing world. That would be an example. Now, some more sophisticated examples are the democracy index that is discussed in your text, the Freedom House index that looks at overall political freedom. Some terms for classifications that you'll read in the text, and I'll apologize in advance. Political scientists sometimes use different terms for the same thing, or the terms have slightly different shades of meaning. And for that, I'll apologize in advance. But when you hear the term full democracy, also referred to as an established democracy or a liberal democracy, we see representative government. We see limited government. Government is limited by a constitution or customs. It operates through law. It provides an accepted framework for competition. Flawed democracies, sometimes we call them semi-democracies, illiberal democracies. New democracies are countries that are just starting out on this path, hopefully to democratization. But we see some similarities in that group. These institutions are more recently adopted. Pre-democratic influences remain. Law, tolerance of opposition, media freedom, market economy, they're not fully adopted, and they may never be fully adopted. Hybrid systems are those systems that contain both democratic and authoritarian elements. Authoritarian systems, and a good way to remember what an authoritarian system is, it's simply not a democracy. And in authoritarian systems, we tend to see rulers see themselves as above the law, free from popular accountability, media is controlled, political participation is discouraged. Okay, well, let's summarize a bit here. Political science draws on concepts whose definitions are often disputed, but they're still important to understand. Government describes institutions and offices through which societies are governed, and governance describes the process of collective decision-making. Politics at its heart is a collective activity and occurs among or between people. Power is a capacity to bring about intended effects, and it's central to understanding both government and politics. Authority and legitimacy are really important related concepts, so make sure that you understand those in doing your assigned reading and preparing for your quiz. Ideology helps us package different views about the role of government and ultimately the goals of public policy. What kind of rules, what kind of laws should we have? Typologies, putting things in categories, that helps us compare and imposes order on the world's political systems and helps us to understand explanations and rules, and in some cases, even predict outcomes. Here are guiding questions for this week. I'm not going to go over them individually. They'll also be posted under the weekly discussion area. Again, one substantive original post and at least 2 posts that respond to on-topic posts from classmates. Make sure to look at that grading rubric that's under D2L to maximize your grade. I'm really looking forward to working with you this semester. Check out my Zoom office hours. Those are posted right on the main D2L page. And it'd be great to meet with you individually. If you have any questions whatsoever, please reach out to me, send me an email, meet with me during office hours. I really want to make this class work for you.